All right, welcome to a special episode of Realtor Fight Club. This series is called What Would You Do? And we are going to have guests from the Ethics and Professional Standards Committee on the board. And we're going to talk about different cases that went to the Ethics Committee and see what the outcome was. So on this episode, we have our favorite broker from Rachael Real Estate, Rachael Real. Hey, Rachael.
Good morning, Jen.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm ready to duke it out with you.
Let's let's see what happens.
Right.
So Rachael will present the case, read the case, and we'll talk about it and see if we think it's an ethics violation. And then we'll find out if it really is.
That sounds like
this should be interesting.
Right. These always are. I'm on my second round of, I've been on the professional standards panel at the Main Street Organization of Realtors in the western suburbs of Chicago for about 5 or 6 years now. And I'm on my second round as vice chair this year and then chair next year.
Nice.
So these are super interesting.
How long is your reign?
It's a year. So vice chair this year, chair next year for a year. But these are really interesting, and I almost wish that every realtor with some experience, there's a requirement for the number of years you've been doing this in order to serve on the panels or on the committee. But I wish everybody did it at least once.
Well,
because it's really eye-opening.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Right. And since people don't, we're going to do it for them. And then we're going to share this with everybody. So there's no excuse not to know.
Exactly. Now, this series is going to air every Wednesday. So if you,
Fantastic.
Yeah, so you'll see it every Wednesday. All right, let's get started, Rachael.
Okay. So the first, the case we're going to talk about today focuses on Article 16 of the Code of Ethics, which Article 16 states realtors shall not engage in any practice or take any action inconsistent with exclusive representation or exclusive brokerage relationship agreements that other realtors have with clients. So in a nutshell, if an agent has an exclusive agency agreement with a client, you cannot insert yourself into that relationship.
And that can be buyer or seller.
Correct. Either side.
Now, all I'm hearing, Rachael, is people fight me on that buyer's agreement. They say they don't need it, but
you need it. Right. If they had it, they need to have it.
Exactly. All right.
For multiple reasons.
Exactly.
Okay. So we're pulling a case out of the Code of Ethics case interpretations from the Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual through NAR. Okay. So this is a manual that is across, through NAR. So it's state, covers all the states. It's not specific to Illinois where I'm from. Okay. So we're going to read through the case and then we'll talk about it at the end, see what we would have done if we were Realtor A or Realtor B. Okay. And then determine what exactly the finding was when this went to a panel. So this did in fact go to a hearing and it was heard by a panel and they had some findings of determination whether or not the person was guilty of an ethics violation. Okay. So this is a true story. Okay. Realtor A was holding an open house for their client's home, which had been on the market for several months. So Realtor A was thrilled to see buyer C approach the home after 2 hours with no visitors.
So this was like 10 years ago.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. Back when we did open houses.
And back when there was nobody there.
Right. You just sat there in peace and read a book for a little bit.
Right.
Okay, so Realtor A gave her a tour of the space, but buyer C indicated she was looking for more of a fixer-upper, as she had almost single-handedly completed some significant renovation projects in her previous homes and was looking for the perfect next project.
Okay.
Realtor A had another listing.
That's like we're judging why she's anyway.
Right. Why is this chick looking for something that needs a lot of work? Because I haven't heard that in probably 15 years at least. I'd like to bring my toothbrush and move in tomorrow, please.
Right. That's more like it.
Right. So Realtor A had another listing that she knew was perfect for buyer C and hadn't been listed in the MLS yet, as the client had just signed their agreement earlier that morning. Okay. Realtor A described the home to buyer C and offered to show it to her. Mm-hmm. Buyer C replied with, "Oh, thank you. I'm actually working with someone. I should probably ask them about it." I love this buyer. Yes. I think all buyers should behave this way.
Correct.
Realtor A responded, "That's fine, but to be honest, I'm not sure if your agent will even get a chance to see it. At the price at which it's listed, I'm confident it will sell before I can even get it in the MLS."
How would that happen?
Right. Gee, I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah. Somewhat reluctantly, buyer C agreed to let Realtor A show her the second home. Realtor A then drafted an offer, which was accepted, and the parties completed a quick close. Proud of a job well done for her client, Realtor A was shocked when she received notice of an ethics complaint filed against her by Realtor B, alleging a violation of Article 16 for interfering with his exclusive relationship with buyer C.
Okay.
At the hearing, Realtor B provided the hearing panel with copies of his exclusive buyer agency agreement with Buyer C, and Buyer C testified that she did tell Realtor A she was working with someone, but felt pressured to tour and submit an offer with Realtor A or risk losing the house.
Okay.
Realtor A defended her actions, stating, "Listen, if I had known that Buyer C had an exclusive agreement with someone, I would have backed off. But she never said that she was working with someone exclusively, just that she was working with someone. It's
Oh,
not my responsibility to fill in the
okay.
gaps. It's not my responsibility to fill in the gaps on what she told me or hammer her with questions and drive away a potential buyer just to determine what sort of relationship she has. That doesn't serve my client well."
Okay.
So,
So.
what would you do? So let's discuss what the appropriate way to handle this would have been from Realtor A and or Realtor B's perspective.
First of all, I think we should give kudos to client.
Oh, I love the client.
Kudos.
Yes.
Great
I want to, yes, we love you,
Yes.
whoever you are.
You're the best. All right.
Yes.
If I was Realtor A, I guess well, first of all, I think that the second that the client said they were working with an agent, I would, because a lot of
You're
people
done.
Right. Well, no, I mean, I'm not.
Well, you have to stop and redirect your course of conversation at that point.
Right.
Who's your agent? Great. Okay, great. Who's your agent?
Oh, and then be like, oh, yeah, I know them, whatever. Let's give them a call, blah, blah, blah. Yes.
Exactly.
Because some people will say that, but it's not true.
Right. It's like going to shop for a car. Are you working with somebody? Yes, I am. Just leave me alone. And I get it. And people go open housing in my market like it's an extracurricular.
Open housing. It's an activity.
Oh, it's an activity. It's a verb here. I mean, it's nuts. So when people, especially during football season, you have a lot of wives go open housing while the husbands are watching football. Mm-hmm. So that's why Super Bowl Monday is like the holiday of real estate here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. So yeah, I mean, if Realtor A is sitting there and and buyer comes in and says, "Oh, I am working with somebody," great. Then your conversation stops, and you then say, "Great, who is your agent? Let me make them a quick call to them, and I'll fill them in on the details."
Exactly.
That's the appropriate way.
I also wonder though, what do you think about her? I had just assumed it was a female. All great agents are female. No, just kidding. Right. Okay. So if she said in there that she's not sure that it will even hit the market, I mean, I guess that's like a whole nother conversation.
That's kind of a whole nother conversation. I look at that as that agent's way of trying to secure this client by showing her that, hey, I have something you want and you can't have it unless you work with me. Yeah. So that was a bit inappropriate.
I didn't like that. Yeah. Okay.
No. So,
okay. Again, but the question is, the ethics violation question is that you can't work with another agent's client when it's exclusive.
Correct. So if you look at the verbiage between an exclusive and a non-exclusive, a non-exclusive agreement just says, hey, these are my duties to you. Here's your duties to me. But it doesn't say we are the only ones working together.
Exactly.
An exclusive says, hey, it's you and it's me and there's nobody else.
But I think in the reality of doing business, and I think this is why the ethics, this is why the What Would You Do series is interesting, because it's like, these are ethics violations, but just because it's an ethics violation doesn't mean that it's in alignment with actually how we do business.
Correct. Because there's, even with, in my personal opinion, and the way I would conduct myself, whether or not this is an exclusive or a non-exclusive, the way I'm handling this as agent A is exactly the same. You're working with somebody great. Who's your agent? I'm not stepping on anyone's toes, whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive.
I mean, I agree. I'm just saying that, but the question is it an ethics violation, right? So I think professionalism is different.
Precisely.
So here's the thing. I think most agents, 99.5 out of 100 agents, if they have a listing, they will get an exclusive right to list.
Exactly. Yes.
It's more common than, first of all,
than an exclusive agency.
Right. But the thing with people showing buyers is they often don't get an exclusive right to represent the buyer.
Exactly. And why would you not? Because if you look at an exclusive agency on the list side, we don't have those, and those are not common at all, because think about how much work you're putting in as an agent with zero guarantee at the end.
No, they should freaking get it signed. It makes me insane.
It's the same thing as, I know, it's the same thing as on the opposite with the buyer side.
Right. Yes. So it makes me crazy. So one, I think you should get it, but I think also agent A, if I'm agent A and I desire to be a little shady, let's say. I would never do this.
You would
but
never
like,
do that, but say
in her
for this
defense,
purpose, right?
In her or his defense, whoever, in Agent A's defense, the chances of this buyer having exclusive buyer agreement is likely slim.
Right, just because of the way the business works in general. We don't see them enough to expect that would be the situation.
Exactly.
Doesn't
Now,
mean that
they're still
doesn't
wrong.
mean that it's still appropriate. Right, exactly.
I mean, I think they're still wrong in how they can decide to do their business,
themselves.
but people decide to do their business in a lot of ways.
Right.
So that's interesting. But is it an ethics violation if they didn't have the exclusive buy? I don't think if they didn't have it, then it's not an ethics violation, right?
Right. You then might have a question as to procuring cause, because it doesn't say in this case here whether or not that agent B or B secured an exclusive representation agreement with the buyer when they wrote that offer. In the state of Illinois, license law states you have to have something in writing when you take on that action that dictates that you're providing agency services.
But isn't that the consumer guide?
No, the consumer guide just explains, here's the different types of agency in Illinois. We have buyer representation, seller representation, dual agency, which is legal in Illinois, although I don't love it, and then being unrepresented entirely. So in order for when I sit down to write a contract with a buyer, if I haven't already secured a buyer agency agreement, then I have to put that in writing at the time I'm writing the offer. So if I get audited by the state of Illinois, I have something in that file, whether it's exclusive, non-exclusive, notice of no agency, something that says I've had this conversation with my client. They know here it is on paper. It's all spelled out.
Right, that we are exclusive. So, okay. So if I am, but it said in there that agent B did present. What is the evidence they presented? They presented the exclusive.
Let's see, right, by Realtor B. Let's see. Realtor B provided the hearing panel with copies of this exclusive buyer agency agreement with buyer C.
So then, it is an ethics violation then, because the code is that I would think that if I were on the panel, I would think that's an ethics violation.
Absolutely.
So what did they decide?
Would you feel that agent, even if it was a non-exclusive, would you feel that agent acted in a professional manner, even if it was not?
I don't think that they did, but that's not the question. The question is it an ethics violation? And I don't think if agent B, although if they didn't have an exclusive buyer agreement, then I think the lack of it says, I'm sorry, it's not an ethics violation according to this particular code. Right. Maybe, but like you said, maybe it's something else, but like you didn't have it. Right. So there was just because you thought, maybe you implied that, and you were doing actions in accordance to being in an exclusive agency with this person, you're not. Right. That sucks though. It does. Hence all the more reason we need exclusive buyer agency agreements. So what was the outcome?
And buyers like this.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So the hearing panel decided that Realtor A had in fact violated Article 16 as standard of practice. It is. As standard of practice 16-9 provides, realtors prior to entering into a representation agreement, and now interesting, that doesn't say exclusive or non-exclusive, just into a representation agreement, have an affirmative obligation to make reasonable efforts to determine whether the prospect is subject to a current valid exclusive agreement to provide the same type of real estate. As Realtor A had made no affirmative effort to ascertain whether buyer C's relationship with another agent was exclusive or not, the hearing panel concluded she had made no reasonable efforts to determine the nature of the relationship as required by Article 16.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you look at the question that Realtor A said, hey, you know what? It's not my job to go ask all these questions. Well, A, yes, it is. And B, she says that doesn't serve my client well. Well, her job is to find a buyer for that property. Right. It's not find a buyer for that property only with your people.
Right.
It's in whatever way it takes for you to get that buyer. So whether she picked up the phone and called the other agent and said, hey, I have your client at an open house. I have a house going on the market. Explain the situation and said, hey, let's get your client in there.
Yeah.
Her seller client would have been served equally as well.
Yes, I agree with you. Right. Unless she didn't have, she had the varying commission.
True.
So if
Sure.
her client is concerned about money and she had that commission where she takes less if she has both sides, then the client would actually not, but you still could have in process put it on the market like you're supposed to.
Right. And she said, I believe she said in here too, that she had put it on the market. She had just put it on the market this morning or that morning.
No, I think they just signed, it said.
Let's
It
see.
had
It
not
was
hit the market.
it
That was the whole
had
thing.
right, hadn't been listed in the MLS yet, as they had just signed their agreement earlier that morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean
Wow.
where I'm at, the requirement is it's got to be in the MLS within 48 hours. So
I think
this was
ours is like 24. So like whatever
right,
the rule is, it's some kind of
right,
rule.
right. It was a short time frame, right?
Wow,
But
that's
yes,
so
either way,
interesting.
this agent definitely was in violation of Article 16.
Well, and to your point, it may or may not have, even if she was the variable commission, maybe she could have gotten more or multiple offers if it was put on the market.
Absolutely, that's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another thing you look at and go, you're best serving your client by putting it on the market and exposing it to the largest number of people you can.
So in an ethics committee hearing, and you're talking about this one for this, for example, you're talking about like one specific thing, but in
Right.
discussing this, you hear another ethics violation. What happens?
Oftentimes we'll go into an executive session and say, hey, do we need to add an article? Do we feel like there's something that else that
Like something
should be part
else?
of this? And that's up for discussion then.
Are you allowed to have an attorney at these?
Yes, you can. So you can have, interestingly enough, as a respondent or a complainant, either one, you can have either an attorney with you or you can have a realtor counsel, which would be another agent that would come with you. So maybe somebody that's on the committee that kind of understands how these things work, is well versed in professional standards and ethics, and they can be
Interesting.
your realtor counsel.
These are
Yeah,
so interesting. All
they
right.
are.
Well, we will do more of these. Like I said, What Would You Do series. It's going to be coming every Wednesday, and Rachel will be on it often.
Yeah,
So
I love these
Rachel,
things.
yes, she's great. These are great, and it gives
They
us a
are.
lot to think about. So they're really interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you have any referrals, Rachel is in Chicago or
Yes, I am.
Chicagoland. What's the best way to get a hold of you, Rachel?
My cell number is 630-542-8688, or you can find me on Facebook at Rachael Real Estate, and that's Rachael Real Estate.
Nice. I love it.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. Have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thanks, Jen.